Alrighty, folks. Hello. How about that Daytona 500? What a race. So, a lot of our concerns going into the race were that we were going to have a single file high, strung out single file the whole race. That didn't happen. We had really good racing. Initially, they were on the bottom, and through most of the daylight, it seemed like the daylight really helped to make it so that the handling of the cars were a little bit different. And that single file high line that we were worried about didn't happen. So early on, the racing was great. Interesting pit strategy, putting it at the stages being about 60 laps in length did create some interesting pit strategy with when guys wanted to decide to pit, given that they could go maybe 44, 45 laps on fuel. So definitely some different stuff. You saw the Toyotas working better together than they had in the past at restrictor plate tracks to, kind of do what the Fords were doing. There was some speculation, I know, before the start of the race, whether any of the teams, whether the Toyota teams and Chevy teams were going to be able to coordinate and work well enough together to counter what the Ford teams had been able to do. And they certainly did that. I believe you had Kyle Busch winning stage one and Ryan Blaney winning stage two, if I remember that correctly. I didn't take notes this time in front of me. I will likely do that in the future, but I don't have notes in front of me for this one, so if I got those wrong, apologies, but I think that was correct. No real big wrecks early. You had one where Kurt Busch blocked or came down on Ricky Stenhouse Jr. It was unclear whether there was contact. Stenhouse definitely didn't lift and was under no obligation to lift in that wreck, in my opinion. It was just a matter of, he was there. Kurt flat out wasn't clear. And so that was wreck number one. Then you had a bizarre wreck between the 52 and the 51 guys who were running the back, wrecking and getting it crossed up as I forget which one. One of them was coming to pit road, or both of them were coming to pit road, and they spin and they collide and take out some of the guys up in the front of the field who were coming to pit road. So those were the main issues that you had, and then as will happen, when you get a couple wrecks, you'll have a couple more cautions here and there because the cars that were involved in those wrecks dropped debris later on. But most of the race was pretty clean, good racing throughout. And then late, as it got darker, all of a sudden, it seemed like the leaders could form that single file, the dreaded single file high line that we were worried about. And it looked like they were gonna string out, and that was gonna be it. But just when they did, you had Kyle Larson blow a tire and spin out, and then I think you had Keselowski blow a tire and spin out. So you had two cautions just as things were getting singled out, and that put us into a box where you have a restart at the end of the Daytona 500 with less than 10 laps to go, and the inevitable happens. You have Paul Menard pushing Matt DiBenedetto, who was a huge story through the day, huge feel-good story to see Matt DiBenedetto leading the Daytona 500 and dominating, leading huge chunks of the race. It really does look like that 95 team might actually be more competitive, given that they're using Joe Gibbs equipment now. They're getting equipment from Joe Gibbs Racing. That team with Matt DiBenedetto looks like that could be a really good combination. So if Daytona's any indicator, which this year it might actually be more of an indicator than most, because the new rules package could lead us to see more of this type of racing at the mile-and-a-half track. So Matt DiBenedetto showed a lot of speed today. He showed a lot of grit. That could be a precursor to something that we see going forward. You never know. It's hard to make predictions based off of Daytona. But again, this year with the new rules package, it's quite possible that Daytona could be more of a predictor of things to come through the rest of the season than it often is and has been in recent years for sure. Let's see. So Paul Menard gives Matt DiBenedetto a bad push, bad bump, turns him in front of the field, and chaos ensues. I think that they said that there were 18 cars involved in that wreck. You had all kinds of stuff. You had a few guys like Ryan Preece doing an amazing job driving through all of the carnage. You had the just, visually impressive, all the sparks and things like that, some hard hits. Thankfully, these guys are driving safer cars and they're hitting the safer barrier and no one was hurt. And then, you had subsequent stack ups on the next restart. I think the next one, it was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. going in the middle three wide and getting into, I believe it was Kyle Larson. And that causes another big one. And then you have another wreck after that, and we got down to where it was about 6 cars. And on those final restarts, you would have Denny Hamlin. You had Denny Hamlin out in front, and then Kyle Busch was able to get past him and actually get an advantage on the front. And Kyle Busch had the advantage on a couple of restarts. And Denny Hamlin was able to work the second to last restart. And I think I forget whether he used the outside or the inside lane, but he was able to make that pass on Kyle Busch so that he was out in front when that last caution flew that set up the green-white checkered. And at that point, with only 6 cars left, that was kind of Denny Hamlin's race. Once he got down there, you could see, Joey Logano trying to make something happen. Kyle Busch was trying to make something happen. Michael McDowell was honestly really doing a really good job. Did a fantastic job keeping the car clean all race and was making some aggressive moves late to try to make something happen through a really aggressive block on Eric Jones. But it ended up being all for naught. Denny Hamlin with the lead with so few cars left after all the big wrecks it was pretty easy for him to run those last 2 laps out from first and get his second Daytona 500 win. So big props to him. Congratulations to the entire Joe Gibbs Racing team. They're still mourning the loss of J.D. Gibbs recently over the offseason. So for Joe Gibbs Racing to go 1-2-3, that was big for them. Really cool to see guys like Michael McDowell and Ryan Preece having really good runs in lesser funded teams, and Ryan Preece making his debut in the number 47, replacing AJ Allmendinger. That was a great run for him. So, that's kind of what you see a lot of times at these restrictor plate races. You see the big names up there and up front, but some of the big names get caught up in the big wrecks, and so some of the names that you don't necessarily see running up front and some of the teams that you don't necessarily see running up front end up having a shot. We see that a lot in iRacing too, that when we go to these restrictor plate tracks, it really is the great equalizer, and guys who, don't normally have the ability to contend for top 5s and wins, all of a sudden they're right in the mix with some of the best on the service. So, today was an example of restrictor plate racing producing that type of racing. Whether you like that, whether you don't like it, I think that, it seemed like there were opinions all across the board in terms of that. It was a really good race, I thought, and then it was kind of a shame to see it marred by so many wrecks at the end. But that's just me. I know that some folks really like that. For me, it was definitely too many wrecks. I know we all expect the big one going into Daytona or Talladega or something like that. We had like 3 or 4 at the end of that race, and it was kind of like the end of the end of a basketball game where they start fouling to get free throws, and the last 2 minutes of the game drags out forever. That was kind of how this race dragged out. I think there were 2 red flags in the last 25 laps or something like that. So great race. Fantastic racing, very interesting stuff through the first, and then just a junkyard at the end. But after all is said and done, Denny Hamlin emerges victorious. He now has 2 Daytona 500 wins to his name. Joe Gibbs Racing gets a 1-2-3 finish in the Daytona 500. So definitely, I think at the end of the day, good storylines for NASCAR heading out of this. Feel-good story with the Gibbs Racing 1-2-3, and you didn't have a snooze fest of a Daytona 500, which after seeing what things were like, particularly in Thursday with the duels, how the Clash went, and how Saturday's Xfinity Series race went, I think that at least was a good thing for NASCAR, that there was actually good competitive racing throughout the entire race. So, that at least is a positive because NASCAR's really been taking a beating with the ratings losses over the past few years, and particularly last year, ratings continuing to decline pretty sharply. For them to, and also all the negative storylines, including folks like myself, not happy with the new rules package and the direction that they're going, for them to have a race that was at least good, competitive, the type of racing in general that you look for in a Daytona 500, which sometimes you have it and it doesn't produce wrecks like it did early in the race, and sometimes you have it and it does just junk up a bunch of cars later in the race. So that's what you get, but at least it wasn't just procession through the entire thing where no one could pass. So that was good. Next week we're going to go on to Atlanta. These videos seem to be a hit. I got some real good feedback off of the last one. I will work on trying to improve them. Right now it's just me talking. I thought throwing my gloves on might be, might add a little bit of color and flair to it. But I will, if as this becomes a bigger part of the channel, I will start learning some things about how to produce these better, and we'll grow from there. But for right now, we're just kind of shooting in the studio, ad hoc. Love to continue the discussion. So here's the deal. This video is going to go up in a half hour from right now. At 7:30 p.m. Central Time right now. I'm going to be running the NIS fixed Daytona 500 live on Twitch. You guys can go to twitch.tv/John_A_Theodore if you're watching this video on Sunday night, and come over there and join the discussion there. We may do a little bit of post-race discussion after that race tonight. Tomorrow's President's Day. I don't have work, so I can stay up a little bit longer and hang out with you guys post-race, more so than I would normally for that. So, yeah. Again, if you like this video, if you want to see more stuff like this, hit that like button. Share this out if you think that what I'm saying is worth sharing. If you think I make good points, if you if you have other questions and things like that, want to continue the discussion, please do click down in the comments below or come on over to my Twitch channel. It's hard for me to interact with chat with them in the heat of the moment in Green Flag Racing, but if things are a little bit easier or we're under caution or something like that, I'm usually able to banter back and forth with you guys, and pretty much any topic goes. So, yeah, hope you guys like this stuff. Again, like it, share it out, give me subscribe. If you don't already subscribe to my YouTube channel, head over to twitch.tv/John_A_Theodore. Click the heart to give me a follow. Links to that as well as my Twitter down in the description below, and my merch store. So check those out if you want. Yeah, that's pretty much it. See you guys out there on the track if you're going to be racing with me tonight. And hopefully see some of you guys in the Twitch chat tonight as well. Thank you very much. Peace out.